This next question comes from Nate. Hey, fellas. Remember a few months ago when there was a Huskers fan who asked about Caleb Williams and Dylan Gabriel and may have mentioned his sister's crush? I'm back. Welcome back, Nate. First of all, y'all are the best in the biz. With all respects to Redacted, my backup boys in the CFB podcasting game, Bud has kicked the Cover 3 into legit GOAT podcast zone. My question, you may have done this before, but greatest player in a single season not to win a Heisman. Christian McCaffrey comes to mind. Brad Banks weirdly comes to mind. Adrian Peterson was robbed. But again, Huskers fan, no one comes to mind more than Tommy Frazier, who was clearly jobbed by being in the greatest team to ever do it. Stats don't lie. All the best, my dudes.
I'm assuming he means 1995 Tommy Frazier.
I'm assuming so, yeah. It's the greatest single season to not win a Heisman Trophy.
See, that's the thing. I think Frazier 95, I don't know if that's the greatest single season as much as it's comparative to the guy who won. Because, I mean, I looked this up. I had in Frazier 95, he threw for 1,362 yards and 17 touchdowns, which is nothing, but keep in mind Nebraska's running an option offense. And he rushed for 604 yards and 14 touchdowns, which is a total of 1,966 yards and 31 touchdowns. Eddie George won that year. He had 2,344 total yards and 25 touchdowns. So Frazier had 6 more touchdowns. George had more total yards. So if you want to argue that Frazier was more deserving of Eddie George that year, fine. I think Tommy Frazier is one of the greatest college football players of all time. I don't think he quite meets the requirement for greatest season not to win a Heisman.
I feel like we did this episode last year. I'm trying to remember who we had.
No. We did best teams not to win a national championship.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Okay. So the Adrian Peterson one is a pretty obvious one. I remember thinking back in the day, Rex Grossman should have won the Heisman for Florida. And I'm trying to remember who won it that year. And it was just...
I think it was Eric Crouch.
Yeah, like Eric Crouch should not have won the Heisman over Rex Grossman.
Eric Crouch got Tommy Frazier's Heisman.
Yeah, our Nebraska guy is not going to like this, but you know. OJ actually is a legitimate Heisman snub with a ridiculous season. I mean, he should have been the first 2-time winner before Archie. Like back in the 60s when they weren't playing 12 games and they were playing 10-game schedules, he ran for 1,543 yards, 13 touchdowns. And he lost to UCLA's quarterback who threw for 1,359 yards and 8 touchdowns. Like there was some weird stuff going on back in the day.
Yeah, it's so hard to like compare the numbers over the different eras because of it. But
Herschel Walker, when they wouldn't give it to a freshman back in the day,
yeah,
a pretty good one, I think.
So I don't think that it was a snub based on what happened at the time of voting, because Reggie Bush was deserving. But if the question is just greatest single season by a player who did not win a Heisman Trophy, Vince Young came to mind.
Yep, 2005. 3,036 yards passing, 26 touchdowns, 1,050 rushing, 12 more touchdowns.
Peter
Pretty
Warrick,
good season.
Back when they like just pretended to care that you got discounts at Dillard's. You know, the outrage.
While we're on the wide receiver topic here, Larry Fitzgerald in 2003, 92 catches, 1,672 yards, 22 touchdowns in 13 games. 6 years before, in 1997, a tall, skinny man in Huntington, West Virginia, playing for the Thundering Herd, caught 96 passes for 1,820 yards and 26 touchdowns in 13 games, but he never had a shot to win, although he was a Heisman finalist that year. But that was the year with Charles Woodson won, Peyton Manning was a finalist, Randy Moss was a finalist. That was an incredible season, but he played for Marshall, and he had, off-field issues.
Marshall Faulk as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like just a ridiculous year. And he lost to Gino Torretta.
Yeah. The Miami QB thing.
No offense, but like Gino Torretta threw for 3,060 yards, which is not great. 19 touchdowns, 7 picks.
Mm-hmm.
I do think if they redo that one and the voting happens after the Sugar Bowl, they probably, Jordan in the chat has a really good one, by the way. And Ndamukong Suh.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we can definitely. I was thinking about being cheeky with Will Anderson, but I really meant Ndamukong Suh. If we're going to talk about a defensive player who was the definition of the Heisman Trophy is most outstanding player in college football, and Suh was outstanding and did absolutely everything in that season.
12 sacks, 20 and a half tackles for loss, and interception. And while those numbers don't really, like Will Anderson's numbers last year were different or better, Will Anderson was an outside edge rusher, and Ndamukong Suh was a defensive tackle. He was Aaron Donald in the college before Aaron Donald existed. He was being double teamed on every single snap, and he blew it up. And he also had a really good season. The only reason he had any momentum in 2009 was because he was awesome in 2008 too. He didn't have the same overall numbers. He did have 2 pick sixes in 2008, by the way. So that's fun to think about. But yeah, no, he was a dominant. Like, that's the most deserving I've ever thought a defensive player should be for the award.
Here's one for you. How about Chuck Muncie?
What?
Chuck Muncie? Isn't that my accountant?
What's Chuck Muncie?
I think Tom. I got this actually from an article from Tom Fernelli.
Yeah.
From July 6, 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So Chuck Muncie lost to Archie Griffith when Archie Griffith, got the when Griffin got the back-to-back Heismans.
Yep.
Muncie actually had a better year. Tom's right. 1,852 yards from scrimmage, 6.9 per touch, 15 touchdowns, and it went to Griffin.
So Tom, what was going on 4th of July weekend that had you writing about Chuck Muncie?
It was on the budget.
Oh. It was something I could write ahead of time in July.
Back when they made me write things still. Another couple ones actually I have. 2007, Tim Tebow deserved to win the award. So this isn't like a snub thing. So.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But Darren McFadden that season ran for 1,830 yards, had 164 receiving, 17 total touchdowns, had 316 return yards. Like, Tebow deserved the Heisman that year. But Darren McFadden was the most exciting player in the country to watch that season. He was the most entertaining. You tuned into Arkansas games just to watch Darren McFadden do crazy stuff. And that was also like the origination. Remember, like when the Wildcat offense became a thing that everybody was trying? Yeah. Well, that was with McFadden. And Arkansas was kind of the impetus for that. And then another player who had 2 outstanding seasons and was a Heisman finalist both years, Andrew Luck in 2010 and 2011. Obviously, in 2010, he finished behind Cam Newton. No argument there. Like, Cam Newton was just a phenom. And in 2011, RG3 won. And that was, at the beginning of the Art Briles kind of air raid Baylor kind of thing where the numbers were eye-popping to us because we hadn't seen them a million times. I think if you played that, both players had the same exact season in 2022, Andrew Luck probably wins over RG3.
Speaking of exciting, Mike Vick, 1999. Ron Dane was the winner. Again, like same scenario.
2,000 yards.
I don't want to knock Ron Dane and his rushing that season, but Michael Vick was outstanding in that game. And like Vick didn't have a great statistical profile compared to sort of what he meant. I remember Virginia Tech in that 99 season won a lot of sort of lower scoring games. Vick had some injury issues along the way, but he was the reason that the Hokies got to play for the national championship that year. There's no doubt about it.